All right, guys. Uh, I know I have both of you on before, but it's like 2 years ago. So, uh, start with Tom. Can you like introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, Tom Barbo. I am return to play coordinator and assistant strength coach for the Carolina Panthers. I'm going into my seventh year. So I've become part of like wallpaper. Nobody knows I'm there. They just ignore me and I stick in the back. And no, it's awesome. It's great. It's the best job ever. So,
Nice,
and I
nice.
get to work with this slappy over here.
All right, come on, your turn.
Yeah, Ryan Belrose, director of sports science. I'm going in my what am I? I'm going into my sixth season technically. I took a year hiatus, need to get away from Tom, reset myself, and then came back. Yeah, best job in the world. Love it.
Nice, nice. All right. So, obviously, finished my first year with pro basketball. I feel like I kind of asked both of you this question on the previous podcast, but like somehow I feel like I need to like we need to talk about it and then like again. Uh Ryan, talk to me about like your framework or your system in terms of like the sports science. Like uh what type of technology you use and yeah, there's stuff in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are probably similar to most teams and clubs. Like we have catapult for on the field measuring, we have vault, we have Kangatech in the weight room, we have perch. We do force plate jumps. We do Nordics. We do Kangatech groin squeeze, calf ISO. We do the run specific ISOs from Natera. Like I would say we use everything that I think most clubs use at this point. I think the technology question is always interesting. I find that a lot of people get a little technology crazy of like, hey, are we keeping up with the Joneses? Are you actually kind of moving the needle? This is kind of my hot topic of the day, but like, I think you can real quick be a mile wide and an inch deep. That's Rob Panarillo would say that to us when he used to work together. I think the key is finding a way that how can you be, an inch thick and a mile deep on all the subjects that you're going to use. And I think that matters probably more than just how much tech you have.
Nice. All right, Tom. Like you and me are strength coach. So talk to me about like with all the data, all those stuff every single day. Like what are some things you feel like, especially when it comes to like return to play, uh, what are some things you value and what are some things you feel like over the past few years you start to like don't think that matters?
Mm.
That's a good question. Uh, I I think that the most important thing are finding the things that are closest to the sport. So in our world, what they do on the field is the closest thing to the sport. So that's GPS that Ryan's talking about because especially in football, it's not really it's very challenging to monitor internal load. So we have to go external load as our proxy. And at the end of the day, we're preparing our athletes, whether it's in training or in return to play, to come back to the demands of the game. And in this case, GPS is the best way to know the demands of the game. Football is a high intense, like a repeat high intensity sport, right? It's high intensity actions over and over again. And preparing them for anything less than that is doing them a disservice and really putting them at risk. Like you don't run a marathon to go for 3 seconds and hit somebody as hard as you can. So that's something that I think we think about and talk about all the time. Um, Now in return to play, you don't have like there's obviously a bandwidth of what they're prepared for intensity wise. So you're just trying to find the most intensity that they can do today, and you keep building that up until it starts to look like the sport. So whether that means running at 60% 3 4 days post hamstring strain, that's the most they're prepared for today, and that is as close as I can get them back to the sport as possible starting now, right? Beyond just GPS, I do think a force plate jump, a single leg CMJ. Um, we're getting a little further from the demands of the game, especially in football, where some guys don't jump that well. Right? Like your basketball guys, they're jumpers. They all jump well. So you can use it as a good test because it's the skill is always there. When we try to use a rebound hop, like a 10-5 hop, and it takes time in order to teach the guys how to do it because that's not something they do regularly. Like repeat hopping doesn't exist in the sport. But like we may load up and jump, but it's not like a repeated jump doesn't exist. It's not going for a rebound, turning and jumping again. That happens way more in your world. Um, I think a Nord board is reasonably useful. Uh, it's not certainly not the end all. It certainly isn't a oh you're good to play because you're strong on a Nordic, but it can at least tell me the minimum, right? Like if the tissue can't tolerate load in this slow movement, then I'd be very foolish to think that the tissue can tolerate equal load with added velocity. That would be insane. Um, what else do I think? We use speed sig as well from Jason Weber, and that's just added on to this. It's catapult, and then he uses their data. That I find valuable, especially when you're able to collect enough data, and that's measuring running kinetics and kinematics. Yeah, so that's pretty close to the sport, as close as we're going to get in football again. That's my answer. Yeah, we use 1080 too. I mean, Ryan talks about all these other things, right? So we have 1080s, and I use them a lot in return to play. I think that resisted running is really valuable. I think increasing, F0 and all of these things matter for return and for injury risk and return. Um, but I'm not going to be using that as my main KPI. Maybe we should be, but we're not. I mean, it's not something that's like a major KPI on a daily basis, especially when we can get closer and say how much work did they do, how much volume of change of direction did they get, how fast did they run, how far did they run fast.
Mm.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off of Tom, I think the key of all of it is like it's all just good training, right? Like he talks about doing the Nord board, like yeah, the Nordics is a part of the hamstring rehab. It is good training. You're just measuring the outcome of good training. Like, are we progressing? Like it's the same as you would measure anything else. The Nord board is the best way to measure how the hamstring is progressing, especially where it's like an isolated movement. The same thing, even like the 1080, like it's good training, right? Resisted sprinting is good training. We all would agree that's great training. If you tie that into the rehab and then measure the outcome, like it's good training.
Nice, nice.
And because we use all this stuff so often, I think something that we've done really well in the last year is using. We have a ton of Kaiser. Um, Ryan starts talking about an inch wide and a mile deep, and then immediately
And
we
then we
start
just go.
we go as wide as possible.
No, it's cool.
But
It's
we have
cool.
a ton of Kaiser, and we're tracking stuff on perch and all. So we've done a really good job of, I would say, gamifying the weight room. And yes, it's a sport where guys are competitive already, but now all of a sudden you're yelling out numbers, and holy smokes, do you get intent. So now when we're in RTP and like we have real numbers that they do. One, they do the exercises regularly, so the skill is there, and two, we have real numbers to actually get them back to. Um, yeah, like I think we're doing a really good job of driving intent, and then it's just becomes as he said, a part of the training, but it makes it so that the return process is easier because they know how to do it and they know what they're doing and they already try hard and they want to be strong, and they're mad if their hamstrings aren't as strong as they were 2 weeks before, and immediately you're going to get better results.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, Ryan, talk to me about like with all these data, you can get like 100, 200 metrics just from force play. You can get tons of metric just from like the GPS data.
Mhm.
Um, Talk to me about, let's start with, how about this? How do you like how do you filter out those noise that you feel like you don't need? How do you select those stuff like you feel like that matters to you?
Mhm. I mean, I think it's filtering it out all starts with having a plan on the front end. Like, what are we measuring and why? What is going to be the metric that you're going to drive up? Like, if we're talking, I don't know, if we're just talking a catapult type situation, like, are we talking, hey, I just want to drive up total distance today. I want to drive up change of direction. Like, if Tom's doing a return to play and we're at late stage and we want to make sure that we are getting this guy back to like the positional demands, it's like, okay, we just want to get him back to the total volume of the day. Great. We're going to do Excel load. Like, that's going to be what we're going to measure today. That's going to be the thing we're going to drive up. Hey, today is going to be the top speed day. Great. His high speed yard threshold, we need him to be able to handle 10 for 170. If you can get him to that, and or worst case scenario, it's 12 for 220. Can we get him there? What is that going to look like? I think a lot of it all starts with being ahead of it on the front end. Like, same thing for the force plates. Like, what are you looking for? Is it a knee? Like, are we going to look at some of the eccentric braking capabilities? Are we going to look at eccentric peak velocity? I think you kind of like figure out what the problem is. We found like with some of the hernia guys, the counter movement depth will change pretty significantly, or even a groin rehab. So like, I feel like the answers are to the test if you know what the injury and or the test is going to be. Like, hey, this guy's complaining of this thing, like you talked about anterior knee pain. It's like, oh, great. We go look at the jump, and it's like, oh, he takes more of a hip hinge strategy. Like, okay, now I'm going to look at his metrics with that lens on. Okay, if it looks like that there, where else am I going to find it? And then kind of chip away at it. I think football is it's a big group, right? Like, we in the beginning of preseason, you have, we'll say, 90 guys. But with that being said, you know your data really well because it's you see it every day. So I think filtering it out is kind of like you have enough. I mean, we just said we've been 6 years, 7 years doing it. Like, you know what it looks like, and you know all of your guys' data real well. We have everything filtered out into like personal breakdown pages, so every guy's compared to himself. So if anything pops out of line, like, you're gonna see it immediately.
Hmm. Um,
I'm
yeah.
gonna piggyback and kind of go talk for Ryan a bit here too. One, I think being well read on best practices matters. Um, for example, there was an article a couple weeks ago, like where they did an SPCA analysis on SPCA uh, on force plate metrics, and they basically said like there's these five groups, and a lot of the time we're looking at the same metrics. Three metrics are saying the exact same thing. So right, like concentric impulse and is what makes counter movement jump height happen. So if you're looking at both of those as KPIs, like they're going to go together. So, or right, it's concentric impulse divided by body weight. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of areas like that where I think that being well read and being up with best practices does help, um, because you're able to take what theoretically works best and then apply our data to it, so you can see if it works for our population as well. Um, we have a gentleman that works with us named Cole, and yeah, I think you know Cole. And Cole's really, really smart, and he runs a lot. Like he's basically our data analyst on the back end, and he moonlights as a strength coach now. We're working on him, but he's a data analyst, and he's able to go in and really also find what metrics matter for us, um, and run analysis and we sit out there. You said you and I are strength coaches, Eric. Like we're the meat sticks, right? So I'll stand there at practice with Cole as we're counting reps and just come up with stupid ideas. And sometimes he thinks they're good ideas, and before you know it, we have a mini app or something that is running that is saying if what we thought was right or not. And sometimes he tells me I'm an idiot, and we keep going to the next day, and it's fantastic.
Nice, nice. Um, I think I asked both of you guys this question before, but yeah, I feel like I need to ask it again. Somehow I feel like a lot like with all these technology, with all like with all these research out there, I feel like we're starting to lose the basic. Like nothing really changed in the past like what 20 years maybe, but I don't know. So, uh let's say if someone like have a I don't know soft tissue injury, miss a game, need to miss a game. So what would be like uh your return to like when it comes to like return to play, like what would be some things you need to check? And like talk to me about like the load progression when it comes to like talking to coaches about practice. Let's start with you, Rye.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like figuring out what we've been able to build them through and then kind of what they're going to be cleared for. Like we previously we had built a practice calculator where we would go through, predict out what the practice was going to be. And then once you know what the practice is going to be and you know what they've done in return to play, you can figure out what they're going to be good for. So like, hey, he's worked up to this amount. Like we feel really good about him taking this many reps if he does full indie. If we modified the indie, then we feel really good about him taking this many reps. I think what has been real nice, we were just talking about Cole, give him another shout out. Like since we've gotten Cole, we've now built it into an app where like we can move a lot faster. So it's like, hey, what do we need to change? Like, hey, like we can go to 50% indie, we can remove special teams, we can do this, we can do that, and we can get you to 20 reps instead. That helps a ton. I think the conversation with the coach is always figuring out what lens they're seeing it through. If it's an older player and it is a run practice and he's like an offensive tackle and he's seen duo 10,000 times, like feel really good about that guy potentially doing less on this practice and needing to see less. So then it's kind of playing the game of like, hey, we feel good about him doing less today. You know what the practice is. So you kind of know you're going to win that argument on the front end, knowing that this day is third down day. He's going to need to see these passes. He's going to need to see this scheme and he's going to need to see it against these techniques. So like that helps a ton. So I think knowing what they've done in return to play, knowing what the predicted practice is going to be, and then kind of knowing your audience and figuring out what the coach is going to want out of them for that day. I would say that's the
Nice.
most important. It gets tricky for special teams.
Nice. Nice. What about you, Tom?
Well, it's the very beginning of your question. I'm gonna save the basics, right? Like we're all working with humans, and the physiology never changes. And for both Ryan and I, our background is, he mentioned Rob Panarello before. Like our background is the system, which is Russian volume periodization essentially. Um, so for us, those are the basics, and it's really nice when you have a framework that is. And I say the physiology, but like the science is improving always, right? So we're able to take what we are learning, what physiology, the new, whether it's Moxie um, or new research in the amount of volume you can handle or whatever it is, we're able to take those things and apply them to what we learned previously with the system and how to calculate volumes and periodization. And you mix those together and you're able to come up with at least best guesses of the amount of stress you're applying to your athletes. And hopefully that gives you some sort of expectation of outcomes. Now, it's not perfect because periodization isn't perfect, and you're dealing with humans who have families and are adults and have real life stress, and all of those things are added into what is expected in the outcomes. Whereas you go and read Bondarchuk, and they were in a communist country where they lived in a dormitory, and he was able to get very, very repeatable outcomes. But because we're aware of those things, so I think we're able to make like decisions of best practice and loading of best practice. It's where we have control. Now, also, there's a ton of areas where, of course, the performance staff doesn't have control, and that's totally fine, because at the end of the day, the sport is not who is the best weightlifter. The sport is who is the best football player, or who's the best at their change of direction drills, right? Like, that's not the sport. But at least you're able to I think you're able to put your athletes in a good position to be successful. So for us, those are the basics. Then when we're bringing people back, we'll follow those. So to be more specific, you don't want to make jumps that are too big in volume. You don't want to give guys 3 days in a row of high loading. You don't want to give them 3 weeks in a row of high loading a lot. There's a lot of things where you're managing intensity, you're managing volume, you're managing density, whether that's running with an injured athlete or training a healthy athlete or managing an entire team for practice. Like, I think all of those basic rules apply.
Mm. Um, all right. So I think it was 2 years ago. Me and my mentor went on a trip to test 10 D1 par 4 basketball teams, like their deceleration quality. We use force play to do counter move and jump, counter move and rebound, single leg counter move and jump, drop jump from different height, and then single leg drop jump. And 1080 we do 505, 5 meter lead in decel, 10 meter lead in decel, and like 180-degree change of direction. Anyway, on that trip, like we were talking to strength coaches or coaches about like load management uh on with catapult data. And what's interesting is I don't know, is that the same with football, but like in basketball, like we're start to dive a little bit deeper into like the whole deceleration concept. So a lot of times strength coaches would probably feel like deceleration load is probably more close to the intensity, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like, talk to me about like your guys' thoughts on like Ryan, talk to me about your thoughts on like what metrics are closer to like the intensity side.
I mean, for football, you're always going to talk about the high speed yards and high speed efforts. And we, so like we've broken ours up into the bands. Like, so what we're talking about when we talk about high speed is 75 to 85%, 85 to 95%, and then 95 plus. When we talk just high speed yards for a total day, we'll talk anything above 75%. I think that's an easy one where like, hey, if they cross 90%, that is a high intensity day. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Like, at that point, we know it's enough where they are getting a massive eccentric load, especially on the lower body. So I think that's one. I think we'll track high speed accelerations and high speed decelerations. We'll track efforts. One thing we've seen, especially for like wide receivers, we'll track medium excel yards. And especially when that is averaged above 100 for over 4 days, we know that's a pretty good indicator of what is going on the tissue. From like NFL's digital athlete system, that is something that's like a pretty high hamstring risk factor. So that's an internal system that we really pay attention to. I think it's twofold though, right? Like all of this, because you know that those are all the things that are high intensity, you also know that those are the things that you have to train in the off season. So like that kind of goes all the way back to your other question of like figuring out what stands out in the metrics. Like you figure out what the problems are. You use things like digital athlete. We partner with our analytics staff. We work on the figuring out what are the things that kind of drive not only just the issues, but drive performance. And a lot of times they kind of intermingle. And then those are kind of the things that like, all right, I'm going to train these guys up to. So I would say, yeah, we do all of those things. We absolutely train the D cells. It's funny you bring up the 1080. That's a conversation that we just had today about doing some of the decel work inside of the 1080. The past 2 years, especially since year and a half, since Coach Kinks came from Minnesota, one of the biggest things we've done is add in some deceleration work into our 2 high days. We had done it in the past. I don't think we had done it the way we're doing it currently, where it's incorporated into the warm up and then we build off of it and then we build up and we continue to build up. I would say that that's been a huge difference, and we can see that when we look at the metrics.
Nice, nice. Tom, what about you? Do you kind of see the same way or like
Yeah. So to the physiology, right? You know that deceleration is eccentric damage. And when you're out there with high intensity decels, it means you're looking at 48 to 72 hours of fatigue, very similarly to max velocity sprinting. So I think those two, I almost bucket them together. If I see either of those, then I assume high day. I assume 48 to 72 hours of fatigue. I assume, and that doesn't mean you can't do anything in the following days, but you're going to have reduced motor unit recruitment, which means reduced outcomes or outputs and potentially increased injury risk. And you also then become, I don't know if at risk is the right word, but you have to be aware that you are going to get the accumulation of fatigue. So the next day, if I go out there and do another hard session, now I just went from those potential 48 to 72 hours. Well, I add another 48 to 72 hours on. So I might have gone from 3 days of fatigue to 5 days of fatigue. And that can keep stacking, right? So I think that an awareness is important first. Whether that's looking at max D cells or the accumulation of accels and D cells, or any of the speed metrics Ryan just referred to. And again, you can build up a tolerance to load and to changes of direction, but it still is costly. There's a lot of research on rugby seasons and how after games, you're getting these 48 to 72 hours of fatigue on top of the physical muscle damage that occurs from contact. And we deal with that too. So you're easily looking at 72 to 96 hours of fatigue from a game or of damage, whatever you want to. So it shows like how important the recovery is, how important proper weekly periodization is, both in the rehab training process and in the weekly macro cycle, mesocycle, whatever. Yeah, weekly mesocycle. That's right. Like all of those things. I think it's important to be aware of those things.
I think piggybacking off of that too, like I think the understanding of how the days stack on top of each other once you've had those are so important. Because the other thing is, it's like load management is such a grandiose term, right? Because it's like everyone just thinks do less versus like at times it can be doing more. And I think Tom kind of hit it on the head in the sense of like, I hit this metric, whether it's a high speed decel, whether it's a high speed yard decel, whether it's a high speed effort, whatever it's going to be, I hit it. And then it's like, okay, well, we talk load management. It's like, oh, the next day, like you do nothing. It's like, yes and no. Like you just have to know, like, because I hit this, like I need to put constraints in place on this day so that I don't get this again and then increase this fatigue. And then if I'm able to do that, well, then this next time I go, I can actually do more. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing of like understanding, like you're just trying to periodize the stressor so I can continue to push the volume up. But like otherwise, when it's like, oh, you run fast every day, it's like, yeah, at some point you stop running fast though. Either you're hanging out with Tom or it's just gone. Like they can't hit it anymore. And I think that's really what load management needs to be talked about.
Nice, nice, nice. All right. Uh, in basketball, like the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, we got a lot of soft tissue injury, like more than it ever been. Um, a lot of hamstring, a lot of calf, a lot of groin, which like if you look at it like 10 years ago, it's probably like more of a track type of injury or more of a football type of injury. So talk to me about like Ryan, but sorry, Tom, talk to me about like your thought process on let's say hamstring.
uh, well, one, so I very much enjoy basketball. I played, so I keep up with the injury trends, I'm going to say. And it almost makes sense that you're seeing this spike, right? Because the game has changed so much and you've increased the space and you've increased the pace. And now, but players are still playing the same number of minutes at higher intensity, higher density, which automatically probably means higher volume. Like you don't get one without the other. So as you have more fatigue at pace at space, you're probably going to see the risk factor go up significantly on top of a dense playing schedule. So those are I would say what my immediate thought on seeing the risk factors are. Now, you also have a unique challenge where the training age of the athletes is very different than us. Um, and that does, I mean, I know there are basketball guys that like to lift, and I know there are a lot of them who do a good job lifting and lift well, but I don't even know if that's the right lifting might not even be the right term, but it's the execution of certain exercises that do reduce injury risk. One of those is high speed running. And we work in a sport where there's all this space, so it happens. And because it repeatedly happens, then they become uh, somewhat vaccinated to it. Whereas in an off season in basketball, how many times is a guy actually turning and opening up and running? So few. So then you put him in a playoff game and someone throws the ball over his head and he turns and opens it up and runs 70 feet as fast as he can. Now he's at risk. And if he ran faster than he normally runs, he's at risk for the next 5 minutes of the game and potentially the next 48 to 72 hours. So, and you're going to play another game in those 48 to 72 hours because that's the way the sport works. So it's, I'm not going to say a no brainer, but it's not surprising. I think that these risks pop up. Um, to me, the solutions are loading prescription ahead of time. It is giving some exposure to velocity that can start out as resisted accelerations and maybe become a little bit of upright running just to give a taste. I don't know. I don't know the world well enough of the culture of training to how that would be expected. And then it's also hard because the loading is a challenge with the frequency and the density of playing. So if we're trying to reduce soft tissue risk, uh, muscle fascicle length, and other proteins like chitin that improve lateral force transmission in the muscle, like those are adaptations of eccentric training. And you're going to be sore when you initially start those types of training, and it's going to decrease as you go, but initially you're going to be sore, and they are tiring, and you don't want to do a real eccentric session and then go have to compete the next day. So it's definitely a different challenge that you guys face compared to our world, but I think there's ways to sneak it in. I know a lot of guys left after the games and all these other things, and that's really important because I think that's the only way that you're going to be able to combat the injury rates with the increases of volume, intensity, density of play.
Nice, nice. Ryan, what about your thoughts in like from a sports scientist standpoint, like thoughts on this?
I think it's such a complex problem. I mean, in basketball, I'm not as big of a fan of basketball as Tom. I listen to him and Cole talk about it in the office, so I get my dose, we'll say, here and there. I, from a casual fan perspective, I do notice that there is like a pretty massive uptick in intensity, especially as you get to the later parts of the year. I think that's always where you're going to end up in problems. Like these guys have a massive chronic workload, we'll say, but then you have this big chronic workload, and then you now throw intensity on top of it. If they're not dosed to it, of course, that's going to be a problem. They also travel a ton, and like the lifting after the game is great, but then I'm catching a red eye back to blank city, and then I'm going to sleep and I'm going to play a game the next night. Like, I think there's a lot of constraints within that system that do make it really tricky. Um, yeah, I mean those are my immediate takeaways. I feel like in the football world, it's like common practice. Everyone knows you run 90% every 7 to 10 days. Like it's finally at a point now where I feel like if you walk in a weight room almost anywhere in the country and say that, everyone's like, yeah, we do that. I don't know basketball that well, but I would definitely argue like I'm not gonna walk in a basketball court anytime soon and be like, did everyone sprint this week? Like, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people will be like, yeah, we sprinted. And it's like, but did you actually run fast? Did you have enough space to run fast? Did you set the environment to run fast? Like that's a low hanging fruit to me. And again, I don't know basketball. This is not my world. That would be my takeaway listening to Tom talk, especially for the last couple of years. Like I do think that's something that takes a while to develop. And yeah.
Nice, nice. Um, Following
Give us
that,
your opinion.
my opinion,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
please. You live it.
I know you're the podcast host, but we're going to start asking questions now.
Yeah,
Well,
You're on the stand. Let's go.
well, I think you guys are probably right. Like basketball players don't sprint. They hate feeling sore. But at the same time, like I feel like there's a lot of like small stuff we can maybe fix or help change. Like most of the basketball players when they run, they're like super anterior oriented. Like their pelvis is super anterior tilt, right? And they're like they can't lift their knees. And when they do deceleration, they just don't know how to do that. Their ankle is so stiff that they can't really go to deep dorsiflexion and they can't really go to deep knee flexion. And all of a sudden, there's like huge hamstring load on that. I feel like a lot of stuff when it comes to like basketball world, like I don't know, I feel like a
I've been
lot
giving
of
Ryan all of these excuses for years. Now he understands.
well, I feel like a lot of it come from the foot and ankle. Because there's actually research talk about uh elite basketball player have like their midfoot is already stuck at age 21. And if you can't pronate, internal rotate the tibia, like you can't really have a good deceleration like posture or mechanics. And that's when like shit happens.
That that's you should send that research article our way if you have it readily available. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I'll send it.
Because because the guys show up to you sometimes younger than 21 when they've been drafted.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
they do not show up to us younger than 21.
No.
So
Well,
that would be interesting.
I
well,
feel
what I see is like most of the elite basketball player, their foot is just stuck. There's like no calcaneal eversion. There's like no pronation. You have to like really like mobilize it hard to get that.
It's also so
That's
tough, right? Because the foot is jammed, the knees are sore as hell. They go to put the brakes on, and immediately they want to take a hip dominant strategy. So then by the end of it, they end up with forward flexion and rotation on a single leg. And you're like, yeah, of course, the hamstring's
Yeah,
not going to do well in that position.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like it'll feel like I don't know, people are still thinking like, all right, they get a hamstring strain because their hamstring's not strong enough. When like, all right, let's talk about load, right? When you do deceleration, the highest load is like 5 times body weight. No way you can't get your athlete that strong. No
yeah,
way.
no, not
No,
possible.
no, that's
Yeah,
literally
so the mechanics matters.
Yes, no question.
the
That's sorry, go Ryan.
no, I laugh about the like obviously we talked about the Nordics in the beginning and like yes, it's good training, so of course you're gonna measure it, but like I've seen so many guys with the strongest hamstrings on the team pull their hamstring that it's like to me that's such a null and void conversation. It's like, oh, where is hamstring strong? It's like, yeah, bro, I wish it was that easy. That'd be fantastic for all of us idiots running around saying that we're gonna fix it. Like that'd be great. Yeah. Hey, couple Nordics. Hey, you're great. Good. Like if it was that easy, that'd be fantastic for all of us.
Yeah.
We regularly have guys who are 6 to 8 days post grade 2 hamstring strain, do a full Nordic, put up 600 newtons, no problem.
1.7 to 2.5 body weight.
Yeah, no problem. No asymmetry or minimal asym regularly. It's like, well, his hamstring is currently pulled. So also we know that our population is pulling biceps long head more often. Nordic, are we really biasing it? Maybe not even the best exercise, but at least we are getting eccentric load to it. Now we're getting more to short head and semi 10, but we are getting load to long head. But I mean, they're still putting out crazy outputs for being currently injured, for having live tissue damage.
Yeah. So I was like,
The mechanics absolutely matter.
yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know.
We measure the best we can, whether that's the Jordan, however you say, Jordan Mendegucha. He has a test that Johan Lottie, who was his understudy, put out as a PhD thesis called the Jordan test. We do that with the whole team very semi regularly, but regularly enough. Um, and that's looking at front side hamstring flexibility with opposing iliopsoas, because together that has a huge effect on strain, on like muscle length strain on the hamstring. Um, that's part of the reason we use all these different pieces of tech, because, for example, speed sig, you wear it on your lumbar spine and it gives you frontal plane motion and sagittal, a little bit of sagittal plane motion in alternating stance phase of the pelvis. Um, and it gives you a proxy for pelvic movement. Um, so it's like how we're trying, I would say, trying to find the best ways to say the mechanics matter. The future is probably Hawkeye, as we were discussing prior to you recording. Um, no matter how many years away that is, and when we learn how to, when Cole gets really good at giving us all the data. um,
It,
but
it's it's funny too because like we had your Dan come in and obviously we sat with him and asked him as many questions as you can imagine, and he makes some incredible points, especially for back to our load management conversation of like someone doesn't just magically pull their hamstring because they have, I'm just gonna use some arbitrary numbers, like a 700 player load and an 1800 Excel load. Like, no, like something changes. So like for us, especially back to like you were talking about our system, like when a guy pops and he's above his chronic workload and he's X standard deviations above high speed efforts, like the first step is, of course, a discussion if it's at that point with a coach about, hey, we might need to pull back. But the first real step is a conversation with the training staff of like, hey, let's check his pelvis position. Hey, if it's bad, like let's get him with the chiropractors and get this. Like you just brought that up. Like, is anterior rotated? Like, what does that look like? The Urdan test. Like, we know these things are a problem. If that's the case, then they stand out as a bigger flag on top of the load. We had an athlete in the past where he pops two standard deviations above the group for an Excel metric. And it's like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be a big deal with the day we're going into. And then like we're sitting in the office, Tom's like, hey, not for nothing, his Urdan test is really bad, especially on the left hip. It's like, oh yeah, this is a big deal because we know that's going to predispose him. We know the load's going to put on fatigue. Like he's got to go see some of our soft tissue specialists, some of our hands-on specialists, and get this worked out before we can do anything.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I had the same thoughts on groin. Is like, uh, if you look at, I don't know about football, but if you look at track athletes, if you look at sprinters, jumpers, if you look at basketball player, most of them will have like one side of pelvis anterior tilted and the other side is posterior tilted, right? And I feel like we just don't look at that enough. Like all of a sudden, like groin strain, like, oh, your groin is not strong enough. I'm like, bro, if one side's anterior tilted, the other side's posterior tilted, like the length tension relationship on the lower limb just not there. One side's eccentric oriented, one side's concentric oriented. Like one side had to be stronger.
mhm.
I'm just like,
Yeah, yeah,
We
and you're gonna get a hip drop like a Trudellenberg, and now that side's gonna be short in action too. And then every single step you're getting these same mechanics. Or if the hip is locked, like what you're saying, like you're completely overloading the groin.
yeah,
You even look, you were talking about it before, foot ankle. Like if the peroneals, because how many times has a basketball player sprained his ankle? If the peroneals are uh, weak at all inhibited, then your lateral glute is weak inhibited, and now you're getting a hip drop, and now that adductor's trying to do more work. It's a now it's the whole chain. It's foot in a pelvis, right? But your mechanics matter.
yeah,
Yeah, like we stole some of the ankle assessments from Ender King, and it's such a no brainer once you see it. And even the speed sig is great because that helps you. Like we had an athlete recently where we're going through their speed sig, we catch exactly what you're talking about, and it's like, man, not for nothing, he had a groin in the past, and it bothers him all the time. Like it's something you should be on top of.
Yeah, his
nice.
hip lock, lacks hip lock on one side, and then it's a, oh yeah, this is the side that he always has a sore groin. Okay, perfect. At
Fix
least
his
now we
fix his
can try
groin.
to fix hip lock. I don't know if we're good enough coaches to do that, but we'll try our hardest.
Nice, nice. Um, all right, next topic I want to talk to you guys is feel like sports scientists, I don't know, sports scientists and NBA are basically like just strength coaches doing like doing the like collecting the data, interpreting the data. When in major, like when in NFL, you kind of have this you kind of have this position only for sports science. So talk to me about like uh Tom, talk to me about your thoughts on like having a position only for sports science. Because like strength coach are reading research, strength coach are like jumps the athlete, do whatever it is. Like we can also interpret the data. So talk to me about like thoughts on like strength coach, not really versus sports scientist, but like these two roles.
We may be in a different, a more unique situation, I'm going to say, because Ryan is a strength coach. And he coaches when he's not doing testing or whatever it is that is needed. I think it's finding allocation of A, skill set, and then B, time, at least in our situation, and then trying to do the things that maximizes everybody's skill set and time that is the best for the team and for the players, right? So in our case, Cole is the by far the best at working with the data. So that's where he allocates his time, and then he helps with testing when needed. And when there's nobody in the weight room, he helps there. But that would be like his order of value, or I'm not going to say value of like where his time needs to be allocated. Ryan really interprets the data very, very well, communicates it very well, and is a good strength coach. So those are the order at which he goes through. And he's looking at the data on a macro level because we have 90 guys. And in season, we still have 70, 53 on the active roster, 43 are playing, and you have 22 starters. So it's a crazy amount to go through in comparison to any other sport, really. I think depending on the strength coach's role, and I also think there's a lot of value in the sports scientist being able to apply all of the data together to connect it, because anybody can look at just the catapult page and then go and look at the perch page and then go look at whatever else it is and say, oh, wow, I saw these 5 things on their own. Seeing them in tandem is really a challenge. And it also takes a technical skill set to be able to actually know if what you're looking at is related and matters and the change is real. In my situation, I can interpret the data decently well, not as well as them, but decently well. But I am tasked with doing that in a return to play setting. So I go through every single day. I'll sit with them as we do it because it's a far more enjoyable practice. But we'll sit together and we'll go through the day's practice as well as the return to play session. And I focus on that area and what the guys did and need to do in the future in order to be prepared to match the demands of everybody that is healthy or their demands when they are healthy. And then there are some strength coaches who just need to be able to look at it. And I say just, but who need to be able to look at it to know how their training affects the field or how their training is affected by the other. I mean, even the sports science of I'm saying the sports science, but of the measures that are occurring in the weight room. I think we are far past the point where a strength coach cannot be literate in technology and in sports science, far past the point. I also think with AI, you're having even more of a merger. And it's not that you are taking away, I don't think you're going to take away jobs of anybody on either end who are capable of communicating, of handling players, of interpreting and passing along passing along the information, because that's the art anyways. I just think you're almost, I don't know if the cream will rise to the top. I don't know if that's exactly what I'm saying, but a diverse skill set is almost more valuable. That's probably more important.
Mhm. All right, your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think he honestly laid it out really well. I think the way he finished it is the key. I think in our world, you do have to have a really diverse skill set. I don't think you can just be a one hat pony anymore. Like, it's hard to just be like, oh, I'm just the sports scientist. And it's like, okay, well, if that means that you just look at catapult and force plate jumps and you don't watch the guys, like, I really don't know how you do the job. That's kind of, you said it early, but like, there's always a human element of what we do. And you may say everything points to the guys are going to be great today. They walk in the weight room, they go to start rolling out and doing their movement vitamins, and it is dead silent. No one's kind of jiving with each other. There's no joking. You watch the first barbell pick up, and the guy's like, ugh, and you're like, okay, one, whatever we did yesterday was a lot more than any of us noticed. Like, there's always going to be that piece that you need to be able to see, and you need to be on the floor to see that. I don't think that you can get away with not being out on the floor to see them as they come in, especially first thing in the morning. Like, that's the first check of the day when you see them walk in the door. That's really important. I think, he kind of brought up like our situation is very unique with the environment that we have, but the two of us, Cole and I'm saying like the skill sets have to complement each other really well. And it's great because that frees me up because sometimes like I may be stuck in a meeting or stuck in a conversation, but that doesn't mean that the day-to-day data process doesn't need to continue happening. Because when I come out of whatever this meeting is, the first thing we're going to want to do is like, hey, let's sit down and go through today. Like, that means everything. So that means everything's got to be processed, it's got to be published, it's got to be pushed through in a manner in which we can sit and kind of decipher through it. I think that's I think it's key to have someone who is a sports scientist and a data analyst, and then you kind of have your, in our situation, a sports scientist who is a little more managerial, has to see it from a bigger lens, the quote unquote 20,000 foot view that can also double in some other ways. Because the other side of this, right, is Tom is very like he doesn't give himself credit in this. Like, he's very literate in the sports science. Like, he's gonna come in the office and be like, "Yo, did you see this today?" and be able to give you the story of what he witnessed and or what he saw as he went through the data. But that the other side of this is like, if Tom is jammed and we have X amount of guys in return to play, like that means okay, Ryan now is going to go over there and assist in that. Like, I obviously will know the metrics, but I need to also know how to get there. I also need to have the ability to talk through it with him as he's building a guy back in. Like, there needs to be a conversation of not only just the numbers, like, okay, you had to get him to 100 high speed yards. Like, that's great, but what's the context? Is it
Mhm.
in how many reps? Is it in how many efforts? It's an offensive line guy. Like, okay, great. We need to do play drives. We need to talk about the acceleration density and what period it's going to be in. So I just think that there's so many layers to all of it that you got to go through. Um, I do wholeheartedly agree though. Like, we're not in the world where you can get away as a strength coach not knowing sports science anymore. Like,
Mm.
I don't really think that's acceptable because the two worlds have to coexist. Like, I don't think sports science exists without strength and conditioning. Like, okay, that's great. If you tell me you know nothing about it, like, how do you know if your program works? Like, what are your KPIs? What do you measure? What are you getting better at? I don't know. Then the other side of it, if like the sports scientist that knows nothing about the strength and conditioning, like, what are you doing? How do you know why a metric got better? Do you have any context coming out of a training block? Why something's down? Why something's up? Like, I, I think all of us need to coexist with one another and be able to overlap. It doesn't mean I need to write the program, and it doesn't mean that I need Tom to, run the data. I don't need him to be able to write script, but like there does need to be an overlap where we can all coexist. It's kind of, I don't know, it's all over the place, but there you go.
My boy Claude could do it for me though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, um,
I do think this is our whole conversation started with our ego conversation. So here we go, patting ourselves on the back. But I do think if for a day we needed to, like Ryan and I could switch jobs. Would it be the same? No. Would would we want to do it? Absolutely not. but like we could get through a day. And frankly, if in a few years I'm a head guy, like I'm going to try to hire people that can do that too, because that wide ranging skill, you can dive in on things, you can go a mile deep when when you have a broad understanding. I mean, Dan Paff talks about that all the time, right? Like the generalist, like I want to find people that are generalists. I want to work with people that are generalists because they see the whole picture and they have this skill set. And then it's those people also, if you've taken the time to to know this broad spectrum of things, then there's no doubt in my mind that you will take the time to dive into becoming a sports scientist. Like Ryan 8 years ago was the associate director of strength and conditioning at University of South Carolina in the SEC, and you go this far now, and now he's the director of sports science in the NFL. Like you could look at that and say, oh wow, that's a huge difference, but it's really not, because even when he was young, right, when he's young and learning all these things, he's learning a variety of things, and then says, okay, this is an opportunity where I can excel, and I believe that he excels. That's, anybody listening can have their opinion if it's excelling or not.
You guys are probably like, wait. Like Ryan probably like one of the best sports scientists I know. The way he explains stuff
That
is like really, really good.
that's very nice of you to say about him.
I'll write that down. Thank you. I might need that. I might need that in an argument with Tom in a couple of days. I I also think like
Bell, you
so
need
what
to put Eric on your resume if you need a reference in the
yeah,
future.
seriously. Hey, going forward, if anybody wants to interview me, call Eric first. That's what I need. Uh but like I also think because of one, you obviously have to care, but you have to know. And like now, Tom patted me on the back, so I'm going to give him the same. But I'm being serious in the sense of like we talk about this all the time. Of like, if you care about the athletes, you'll find the answers. And because of that, if you really care about getting this guy better in a return to play setting, like how are you not going to go as deep as humanly possible on the sports science side of things to figure out what this is? Like, uh, you get a guy injured first time. I don't even know. Like it's the first time you've seen blank injury. Like we had a back a couple years ago. It was the first time we had like a real true Dr. Watkins back surgery. Okay, immediately Tom is first thing he's doing. All right, I need to do a full deep dive of this guy's position. I need to know what the demands are. I need to know what he's going to be asked to do. Great. And like we'll say that is the external, the on the field though. Then it's like I need to do a deep dive of the actual position. How does that position move? Where is that position going to take on load? When are they going to be in flexion and extension? What does that look like? And then it's like, okay, how can I reverse engineer what he's going to be asked to do? Like he's going to block in a traditional return to play setting. The blocking comes just as like an adjunct to like, oh, he's good to block. Like he just starts blocking. But in this back case, it was like, how can I introduce him to the load of blocking? It's like, okay, he's going to hug a med ball. And like, it's like, what are you going to do then, bud? And Tom's like, well, I'm going to wrestle him holding a med ball. And it's like, okay, that is taking what it is, that is looking at it and then breaking it down into its subsequent parts and then being creative to give him the load. And then you just continue going deeper. And like, to what he said about being a general, it's like, that's what you have to do. Because otherwise, that guy comes back and he hits the field and he's just like, hey, you guys didn't prepare me to block. My back's jammed up again. It's like, of course it is. But then when he gets back and he's done this, he's like, it's a joke. I just wrestled two strength coaches while I was carrying a med ball the other day. I can go back and block. And so like, yeah, and I'm
Block a
looking
dummy,
at
not a real human. When he has to
yeah,
block a real player, we are not we are
yeah.
still a joke.
We are
To be
still
clear.
we don't weigh enough or are strong enough to do that. But I'm actually looking at the book Dan gave me, the Neo Generalist book, and like I think that's why that matters so much. You need to have those skill sets. They need to be really diverse, and you got to be able to, like, you got to pivot on the drop of a hat. Hey, two guys are injured. Tom's going here. This guy's here. You got to go here. Like, and like even Cole, like we were just making that joke. Like he moonlights as a strength coach, but like it's not a joke because if we're running 10 perches and we are running force plate jumps, like, hey, not for nothing, bro. You're about to have to coach this rack because I have 15 things going on, and I need you to be able to know this. So like he had to get better at it, and he's great at it. Like he's going to be able to give recommendations when he sees the data pops up. He absolutely knows what that looks like, and that's what it's got to look like.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, since we're talking about this topic, um, obviously you guys hired Cole like a couple of years ago. So let's
Damn
say,
right we did.
so talk about like, all right, if you're gonna hire a position, like what are some
Ooh.
qualities you value? Start with you, Tom.
No, no, no. Ryan's gonna lead the way. He's
Come
he's
on.
got he's got that he's got
Come
that
on.
look on his face
Come
like
on.
he's
Come on.
thinking.
I they they have to be passionate about the job first and foremost. Like they have to genuinely care about it. And I say that for so many reasons because if they're passionate about it, they're going to continue learning it and it's going to be a lifelong journey where they're going to learn every day. They're going to want to get better at it. Like I think it's really tricky, especially in our settings, the three of us that are talking right now, to like, I can't make you want to learn, but if they're passionate about it, I know that they're going to continue learning. And then I talk a little bit about the passion paradox in the interview process. Like, I want to know what excites you, and then I want you to run with it because you're going to do a million times better with whatever that is than any project I give you. And then if that aligns with what our goal is for the position, then of course this is going to be a great role. And of course there's going to be some stuff along the way that you're not going to want to do. But guess what? It's going to come with the job. But if I know you're passionate about it and I know you have things that are going to lead us along the way, I think that's going to help a ton. Because like it's prerequisite. If they're interviewing for the job, they're going to be a smart individual. They're going to hopefully be well rounded, or else you're probably not going to bring them into the interview process. Like they have to be a good person. But again, like I think you can vet all that before you even start the interview. Like, yeah, good person, good morals, sure, sure, of course they need to be. And then like if they're passionate, great. And I do think like in our setting, like we're gonna spend 9 months pretty much, especially if it's like when we are hiring Cole, like I gotta be able to sit in an office with you for 12 to 16 to 20 hours a day. Like, I think all of those things come when you know that they are passionate about the job and that aligns with what you want to do.
Mm. All right. What about you, Tom?
I agree with those things. I think it's the references, who's recommending them is important. Again, yeah, it's somebody that you have to be willing to spend a lot of time with, want to spend a lot of time with, probably share int- at least interest in the job. Absolutely. Um, it's a tough road when you're trying to hire for a skill set because I think that can be dangerous because the skill set you need now might not be the skill set you need down the road. And down the road can happen way slower or faster than you think. So I do think that the passion and the want to help is probably the most important things first. And the generalist abilities, definitely. A history of solving problems is pretty important, I think. Um, a history of finding solutions as opposed to just finding problems is probably pretty important, and that's what the hopefully your references are telling you that the reason that you're interviewing these people first. I don't know if I'm missing anything else.
Yeah,
No,
that's
I
good.
like
That's good. This is very inspiring. This is very.
I I can't say that I've done a lot of hiring, and we've been part of a few processes, but not a huge amount. And
yeah.
I also honestly haven't interviewed for that many jobs. So it's something that I think about like in trying to be prepared for interviews is what are these people looking for? You also need someone who's genuinely themselves because it's almost better to have somebody that's I don't know if quirky is the right way, but like the players respect that. If you know what you're doing and you're helping them, they don't, especially in professional sports, like they don't care if you're quirky because they know it's what's best for them. So I think that you need to go and find the people that can help the players. That is absolutely and are willing to help the players and will spend as much time as necessary to help the players because that's the job.
This is very, very inspiring.
Oh, we're so inspiring.
I
So the reason I asked this because like a couple weeks ago, like I was at NBA Combine, like all the strength coaches sitting there talking, and like we're talking about like, we get all these DM all the time, like, yo, how's he get this position? How do you got that position? How do you get that job interview? And we're like, bro, I'm not gonna answer that shit. Like, but if you text me like, oh, I want to learn about this, I want to learn about that. I'll be like, yeah, we can hop on a call and talk about it. So That's why I feel like the podcast I recently did, I always ask people like, what do you like? What kind of quality you look into? You already value.
Hmm.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's funny. I get those. I'm sure we all do on LinkedIn or whatever it is. I try to reply to a lot of people because I don't even remember who it was, but someone told me that when you're young, you have to say yes to as much as you can. And it's not until you get older that you're allowed to say no. So I make an effort to say yes to as much as I can. Um, I now have a 6 month old though, so I've started saying no to more. But I think that I almost have a, I don't know if canned answer is the right way, but it's like, dude, you need to go coach.
yes.
Like at the end of the day, you don't even know if you like this yet. So you need to go and coach so much that you know if you don't like it. Then let's have the next conversation, right? That is, okay, now how did I get this job? I got really lucky. So you better get lucky. Like
And
that's the
and the more you
that's
coach,
that's the reality.
right? The more you coach, the more you increase the likelihood of being lucky, right? Like I'm just trying to
Yes.
increase the likelihood of a positive outcome. Like you need
Yeah.
reps, you need volume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
And the more
Eric,
you coach and the more you love it, you go to conferences, you go to the combine, you go to Summer Strong, you go to the NSCA conference, and you meet people. And now all of a sudden, and you know a lot because you love it and you want to talk about it. And now all of a sudden you got lucky because somebody you were bullshitting with just got a job and brought you. Like that's
because Eric,
go
I
ahead.
imagine how often do you lean on an experience you had in Louisville, where you coached
Louisville.
Louisville, where you coached 100 different athletes? Like how important were those reps for you at the stage you're at now?
Like super important. Like I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
And like
Yeah,
just
and
imagine,
we all wanted the job we have now 10 years ago, and we would not have been prepared for it.
yeah, you would have no chance. So like imagine if you only coached one sport the whole time you were there.
This is
And
very inspiring.
yeah, I I think it's funny because we always tell the athletes, right? Like, oh yeah, you just need more reps at that. It's like, yo, look in the mirror. So do you.
Yeah. Nice, nice, nice. All right. Last topic before I let you guys go. Uh, what are like one thing you're trying to learn right now? Let's start with
No, go Tom, because I know
yeah.
what he's doing right now.
All right, come on, Tom.
Well, 1A is I'm teaching myself how to use Quad Code, and I'm going to turn myself into a sports scientist, so I don't need Cole and Ryan anymore. um, beyond that, I am still doing a bit of a physiology deep dive. A little less. The last 2 years, I would say Ryan and I have really, really uh, been on that train, and it's still ever evolving. But I think that whenever you start learning something new, right, you don't have a scaffolding, so it's everything is new and it's hard to learn. And then once you've heard it enough, listened to it enough, read enough, then you start to connect the new pieces to what you know, and it's way easier to learn. So I think we are getting closer to that point where you don't need the same volume of information in order to pull the new stuff in and attach it to what I hope is true. It would be unfortunate if what we've learned is not true, but I would hope it is. So that's definitely an area that I've been learning that I think is a little is still important but going away. Um, I've done a little bit of like recently, kind of more into the brain. I did a really in-depth look into motor learning, constraints-led approach. I know that's hot in the NBA, but more so from a training cueing standpoint. And and I don't even know if it's right, but like a neurocentric approach more in rehab. Like Dustin Grooms is a researcher who does a lot with ACLs, but it's, when you are rehabbing athletes and they're internally focused, which happens when you get hurt, and they're watching their knee as they do their early rehab and their leg extensions. Well, their proprioception is already negatively affected from the injury, and then it becomes stacked from washing it in order to do a leg extension, and then they go back in the sport and they have to change direction and they can't look at their knee, and there's all these other cognitive demands. So I think that that's something that's really interesting, and I don't know if low hanging fruit is the right word, but it's definitely an area that I can continue to really, I think, make strides in our RTP and find ways to help our athletes significantly. Um, and then I think we've all been doing it, making an effort as we've learned the physiology stuff and kind of mixing it together into like, all right, what is the real fatigue and damage caused from playing the sport of football and planning a week and playing like Bell is always doing practice planning on top of training camp planning, right? Like real scheduling periodization. And so I think that the physiology is kind of mixed into that nicely, where it's I want to know why Isserin and Zatsky or he said like I want to know what the underlying things that made them come out with their periodization models. Like I want to understand the science behind that beyond that it works, because sometimes it doesn't work.
Nice. What about you, Ryan?
I mean, because obviously we work so hand in hand, it is pretty much the same things. I think the biggest thing trying to understand is taking all the things that we've learned about physiology. Like, I don't, I've probably listened to every Chris Beardsley podcast, book, thing you can think of in the last 2 years. But trying to take all of that and decipher that into information that can be as well approached to a team as humanly possible, to his point about the scheduling, but also like for that to be implemented, then it needs to be communicated to a coach, to an op, to like to your football operations staff, to like all these different people, and they're coming at it with a completely different lens than you. So I think the biggest thing I've been trying to learn on is literally the people side of like, hey, I learned this thing. And like that's obviously I talk with Tom, we talk with Cole, Genevieve, Rendrick, Josh, of like, how can we better explain this thing? How are we better like the nice thing of being in a place for a couple of years is I've seen it explained well, I've seen it explained poorly, I've seen it work, I've seen it not work. But because of that, I've got to have reps at making some of the mistakes. And so every time I think it's figuring out another iteration of we said it like this in the past, that was poor, we got this outcome. How can we say it better? So I think that's an ever long, I guess, lesson. Of course, like everybody in the entire world, like continuing to find ways where AI can help me do my job and decipher and break things down into a more, I guess, more meaningful set of information and just figure out how can I streamline a lot of my processes. I think that's been really important. And I think kind of this is a sidebar, but like I think the bigs in football, I don't know if they get as much love from any of the load management side, especially on the field. I think that's something that I really want to continue doing a better job with. I think, especially in football, the offensive line really drives so much of your success. And I think at times it gets glanced over from a loading standpoint of course, they're just plow horses, but I think sometimes we treat them too much like plow horses and we're not willing to recognize how overloaded they get and how much of the work they do that none of us measure.
Nice, nice. That's all I have for you guys today.
I feel like I just took
That
a
was
test.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.